Chapter 1. The Enigmatic Guest Emerges. What's up, fam? Welcome back to another chilling chapter. Before we dive into today's twisted mystery, Hercule Poirot and the Widow's Silent Cry, hit me up. What made you smile today, and where in the world are you listening from? I'm featuring your stories in the next drop, so don't be shy. Now grab your tea, dim the lights, and get ready. Because nothing in Whispers in the Fog is ever what it seems. The clock struck midnight with a chilling finality, its sound swallowed by the violent symphony of wind lashing against the old manor's weathered facade. Outside rain poured, as if the heavens mourned, each drop a reminder of the sinister gravity unfurling within. In the flickering candlelight of the drawing room, a single scream of anguish pierced the storm, and all who heard it were forever altered. Here in the venerable halls of Dunraven Manor, tragedy had taken its first breath. As the guests of the annual winter soiree collected in shock, none noticed the slight figure in the corner, his mustachioed face illuminated briefly by the dancing flame of the candles. It was Hercule Poirot, famed detective, observing the chaos with his quaint perfection. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he whispered to himself, feeling the tension weave through the air like an inescapable web. Lady Agatha Trevelyan, the esteemed hostess, trembled as she rushed to the doorway, her elegant dress flowing behind her like a shroud. "We must see what has happened," she cried, her voice strained with fear. The guests followed, their expressions a mix of interest and dread. In the center of the room lay the lifeless body of Sir Alexander Wright, the manor's most esteemed guest, his eyes wide open in a terrible gaze, as if seeking answers in the very shadows he now inhabited. Poison, they concluded, as the trembling feet of the guests strayed away from the scene of horror. Among the onlookers were three distinct figures, each harboring secrets thick enough to shroud the truth. Dr. Sebastian Clarrington, a medical practitioner familiar with the nuances of life and death, stared at the body with a paradoxical mix of clinical curiosity and suppressed rage. Indeed, Sir Alexander had been suspected of various indiscretions within the medical community, casting a pall over Clarrington's otherwise illustrious career. Next, the strikingly beautiful Clara Delacroix clutched her pearl necklace with trembling fingers, her auburn curls framing a face painted with anguish. A professional actress known for her volatile temperament, Clara had shared a torrid past with Sir Alexander, a passionate affair that ended on a bitter note. The world knew of her relentless ambition, but was unaware of just how deep her scars ran. Lastly, there was the enigmatic Mr. Harold Finch, a man whose wealth and influence were rivaled only by his penchant for unflinching brutality. He had been overheard arguing with Sir Alexander moments before. The murder, threats laden with bitterness, layered beneath their exchange. Finch had made enemies, but why would he risk his reputation by committing murder in such an audacious manner? Poirot took note of their reactions, the subtle twitch of Clara's eye, the stress wrinkle forming on Clarrington's brow, the cold calculation clinging to Finch's demeanor. As the three suspects retreated to the fireplace, their banter cloaked in false sympathy, Poirot's mind began to race. His elegant fingers, steepling under his chin, he allowed the scene to play out before his keen intelligence, drawing forth the threads of truth woven so cunningly by the fabric of deception. Yet amidst the grief of the onlookers, a single shard of sorrow pierced his own heart. Lady Agatha was notably in distress. Her hands, once confident, now trembled ever so slightly against the fabric of her gown. "I cannot bear this," she exclaimed, tears cascading down her cheeks. It was then Poirot concluded. She was too invested to be simply an innocent bystander. A storm raged on outside while Poirot gathered the suspects into a corner of the drawing room, illuminating the tiny details that painted a larger picture. "Mademoiselle, if you would be so kind," he queried Clara in his languid manner. "What was your relationship with Sir Alexander?" She straightened her back, brushing aside her distress with a rehearsed smile. "A fleeting romance, Monsieur Poirot," she replied, but her voice trembled on the edge of falsehood. "He meant nothing to me." Poirot recognized the inflection of her words, the hesitation. "You cannot fool me, mademoiselle," he said. people shifted uncomfortably. You loved him more deeply than you wish to acknowledge. As she opened her mouth to retort, Dr. Clarrington interjected. How dare you insinuate such nonsense? Love clouds judgment, Monsieur Poirot, and that is a dangerous emotion to relinquish. Perhaps, doctor, he replied, but revenge, that is a heart wholly different. Tell me, did you not have a disenchantment with him after the granting of his last accolade? The room fell silent as Poirot observed the turmoil roiling behind Clarrington's eyes, an internal war culminating in unvoiced resentment. You are wrong, he muttered, biting back the truth that threatened to emerge. Poirot felt the tension shift as Harold Finch stepped forward. I was in the room when he drank, Poirot. He had no enemies here but himself. Just as Poirot began to untangle the complex threads of deceit surrounding them, an anguished shout rang out from Lady Agatha. I saw a shadow near the window when I rushed inside, she exclaimed, her voice tainted with alarm. What at first appeared to be a revelation became a distraction for Poirot. His mind whirled with the shadows of possibility, yet a single detail eluded him, a piece of logic unaccounted for, a vital aspect of human existence overshadowed by the dark sky. As hours slipped away, Poirot fortified himself with patience, knowing the truth would reveal itself. However, the web of betrayal soon ensnared even him. Clara's past gave rise to a shocking revelation. Sir Alexander had taken advantage of her vulnerability, exploiting her ambition for fame, inciting both anger and love. The doctor, too, had deeper entanglements. The debts he had accrued risking his career painted a different angle to his plot. And Finch, the man of power, had his motives ensconced in fear of losing blueprints for a medical advancement that could bring him both fame and fortune. Just when Poirot believed he grasped the threads of their lives, the final twist awaited. Underneath all of it was Lady Agatha, whose sorrow transformed into rage, seeking vengeance for the lies spun around her reputation for years. As Poirot reconstructed the night's events in his mind, he put too much trust in an assumption. Could you have done this, my dear lady? He asked. A chilling silence descended before her laughter curdled the ice the wand. Believe what you must, Poirot, but I am not the murderer, she insisted, her eyes alight with madness. She twisted the atmosphere yet again, and in that pivotal moment, Poirot caught the glimpse of her true intentions, hidden, left-right, lost in the myriad of deceits. With heartbreak, he realized his initial premise was flawed. The solution lay not in jealousy or ambition, but rather in the teachings of heartache and betrayal. Finally, with every fragment neatly stitched together in testimony, Poirot turned, his voice resonating through the hushed drawing room. Ladies and gentlemen, we have unraveled a mystery girded in sadness. Not only has a life been extinguished, but our very essence as human beings has been twisted and forfeit. We live in the shadows of others' choices, and that, I must confess, is the most treacherous part of our existence. As the candlelight flickered one last time, casting eerie shadows upon anguished faces, Poirot bowed his head. In the quiet that followed, he understood the darkness would always linger, but the truth, resilient and forbidding, had finally emerged. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Dark. The air hung thick with tension, as if all the secrets of Dunraven Manor had conspired to suffocate those who lingered within its shadowy confines. In the dead of night, a low moan echoed through the halls, slicing through the silence like a dagger. Guests, still reeling from the tragedy of Sir Alexander Wright's demise just hours prior, recoiled in horror as they found themselves trapped in a web of fear and suspicion. This time, however, the darkness carried a weight of its own, for amidst the cacophony of whispers, one soul had succumbed to an even more sinister fate. For within the library of the manor, where the musty scent of aged leather mingled with the storm's fury outside, the lifeless body of Lady Agatha Trevelyan lay sprawled across the polished mahogany floor, her delicate fingers stiff and clutching a crumpled letter. Candlelight flickered above her, casting erratic shadows that danced hauntingly upon the walls, mimicking the turmoil brewing in the hearts of the remaining guests. Hercule Poirot stood at the threshold, a portrait of calm amidst chaos, his eyes narrowing as he took in the scene before him. Ah, but the human heart, It hides many things, mon ami, he mused, captivated by the despair entwined with betrayal. As the guests crowded around, two figures emerged from the throng. A sleek silhouette with emerald eyes and a man whose swagger concealed a lurking bitterness. Clara Delacroix appeared every inch the fragile starlet, her auburn curls framing a face drained of color, yet alive with suppressed emotions. She had participated fervently in the soiree's tragic revelries, and now, as shock coursed through her, a complexity lurked beneath her facade. The doctor, Sebastian Clarrington, was not far behind, a once dignified man now harboring a shamed countenance, his keen mind racing to piece together the fragments of deceit tangled within the room. What has unfolded here? Poirot's voice penetrated the shock, steady and unwavering. Was it despair or treachery that delivered this fatal blow? The air thickened with unspoken accusations and mumbled fears as the guests struggled to comprehend the grisly tableau. Each of them was ensnared in a trap of circumstance, yet it was Poirot's discerning gaze that pinpointed the ticking clock of motives hidden behind closed doors. With tension mounting, Poirot initiated his inquiries, probing each suspect with surgical precision. Mademoiselle Delacroix, he began, casting a meticulous glance at Clara, did you not share a symbiotic relationship with Lady Agatha? An actress itching for the spotlight and a matron keen to secure partnerships. Is it not conceivable that in a tangled tapestry of jealousy, you could wish her harm? Clara's emerald eyes widened, the innocence she sought to project cracking under the weight of suspicion. I adored Agatha's spirit, Monsieur Poirot. Surely you cannot think I would resort to such vile action? A tremor punctuated her statement, her tremors betraying her desperate facade. Poirot, also aware of the jagged whispers of past grievances, mused silently on the peculiar entanglement that once unified them both. Clarrington, fists balled at his sides, interjected sharply. You presume much, Poirot. We were all aware of the pressures surrounding Lady Agatha. She was clawing at every opportunity to elevate her status within the medical community, carelessly stepping on those in her path. Poirot noted the tension in the doctor's words, a thin shield protecting deeper resentments, locked within his sober eyes. Ah, yet the shadows can hold secrets, dear doctor, truths that could lead to salvation or destruction. But we must speak of the last moments of Lady Agatha. Poirot pressed, channeling his focus upon the third suspect lurking at the fringes. It was Harold Finch, whose bulk concealed a mind uncommonly sharp. His considerable wealth afforded him many advantages, yet envy was an insidious neighbor. Did you not once share a partnership with Lady Agatha, Mr. Finch? Poirot queried with surprising candor. Is it not true that upon her most recent triumph, your dialogues had turned sour? The atmosphere thickened, and Finch's narrowed gaze hinted at something deeper. I did, Monsieur Poirot, but jealousy does not do to a gentleman that which he does not choose, he replied coolly, though the tension in his voice belied the bravado. As the investigation unfolded, Poirot deftly navigated through the tapestry of lies woven tightly among the three suspects. Clara's glorious ambition had left scars upon her heart, yet her desire for fame dulled her morality. Dr. Clarrington's rise had been shadowed by frustrations and disappointments brought about by Lady Agatha's cutthroat character. And Finch, for all his bluster, had his ambitions too, perhaps yearning to snuff out the light before it eclipsed him entirely. Hours turned to murky whispers of time, where the storm continued its relentless onslaught outside, rattling the fragile windows. A shudder fell through the manor as Poirot's attention was drawn to a betrayal obscured from view, an anonymous letter bearing the wrath of a forsaken soul concealed within Agatha's delicate fingers. Was this not the catalyst, the final spark igniting the blaze? Alas, a mistake I made, Poirot thought, for the letter was damning, yet simplistic. It was a red herring, a mere instrument forged to evict feelings of resentment rather than capture true malice. And yet, in the shadows of a woman scorned, could one find the heart? He pondered silently, as the clock ticked unforgivingly. Finally, Poirot turned to the assembly, his voice resonating with the weight of revelations, his keen intellect piecing the fragments together. Mademoiselle, You were not here to endure the consequence of another's madness, he declared, fixing Clara with an unwavering gaze. Yet Lady Agatha's demise was born from the echoes of a dark alliance. None are innocent amongst those wrapped in envy and ambition. The tumults within the room stilled. Regret and guilt settled among those present, the flickering flames of the candles casting their ominous glow. In that moment, and just when it seemed truth wrapped itself in the embrace of the night, a spark of betrayal ignited within the depths of Lady Agatha's schemes. A figure stepped forward unexpectedly, a familiar face that jolted the room into silence. Lady Agatha herself, alive amidst the haunting shadows. "What a splendid performance indeed," she announced, a sadistic smile twisting upon her lips, dismissing the lifeless body as mere theater. "You truly believed I would allow my plans to be thwarted by the very shadows I command?" In that harrowing twist of betrayal, Poirot stood still, every assumption shattering against the wall of reality. "You disguised your motive, hidden in plain sight. You feigned vulnerability, yet orchestrated the very death you wished to frame upon another. The final act was yours, Lady Agatha." With that, the culmination of deception revealed itself. The echoes of anguish turned to bitter laughter as Poirot bowed his head. Silence lingered once more, the shadows twisting with the darkness of the human heart, a place of treachery and despair, now exposed, ignited by invisible threads that bound them all. "Regretfully, my dear friends," Poirot intoned, his voice extinguished of all mirth, "the dark choices of our existence seldom linger free of consequence, and even in the whispers of this night, we remain wedded to the choices we harbor." As the candlelight flickered, entrapping the secrets of their hearts, Poirot understood that the darkness would forever encircle their fates. Chapter 3. A Fragile Alibi. The storm raged outside, the howling wind clamoring against the opulent windows of Dunraven Manor, as if the very walls themselves murmured with dread. Shadows danced malevolently along the corridor, and a distant crash of thunder seemed to echo the agitated pulse of the inhabitants within. In the heart of this swirling tempest, a scream shattered the night, piercing through the gloom and rousing the guests from their restless slumber. It came from the study, a beloved refugee turned grim stage for treachery. Hercule Poirot, ever the calm amidst chaos, found himself at the threshold of the room where the macabre scene lay unfurling before him. Lady Agatha, who had so recently been a pawn in another's grim game, now lay sprawled beside a shattered vase, her lifeless form contorted in a final act of fear. As Poirot, with eyes sharp and discerning, surveyed the room, his mind began to race, piecing together the grotesque tableau. The crumpled letter still clutched in her hand spoke of broken promises, but it was the flicker of movement at the door that caught his attention. A figure lingered in the shadows, their face pale and apprehensive. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot mused inwardly, an instinctive awareness of the hidden motivations that often govern one's actions. The figure stepped into view, revealing Clara Delacroix, her emerald eyes wide with horror and disbelief, betraying her innermost turmoil. I didn't do it. I couldn't have. I found her like this." Her voice trembled, yet Poirot did not miss the fleeting glance at the letter, nor the way her fingers fidgeted nervously. "Calm yourself, mademoiselle," he replied, his tone steady yet firm. "Explain the events that led to this tragic moment. We must comprehend the circumstances, every detail, every nuance. I trust you understand the weight of such a claim." His gaze bore into her, noticing how her facade began to crack, revealing layers of fear and desperation. Before Clara could respond, the door swung open with an unsettling creak. In strode a right-up Sebastian Clarrington, the doctor, his expression a medley of shock and uncertainty. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, though the quaver in his voice belied his bravado. What has transpired here?" Poirot noted the way Clarrington's hands clenched into fists, a coiled spring of suppressed rage and anxiety. "Mon ami," Poirot interjected softly, "this is where we unveil our collective vulnerability. Lady Agatha has departed from this world, and I fear that the fabric of trust amongst us has frayed into tatters. He confirmed both suspects' emotional upheaval. Their reactions hinted at deeper currents. An undercurrent of animosity simmered beneath the surface. The muddled thoughts danced in Poirot's head as he regarded Harold Finch, the wealthy patron, who now hovered at the threshold, scanning the room with an inscrutable expression. "I warned her," he said at length, his voice tinged with a mixture of sorrow and triumph. "She was too ambitious for her own good. Perhaps now, her folly will remain a cautionary tale." His words seemed to hang in the air, a tantalizing glimpse into his own motivations. "Did you consider her a rival, Mr. Finch? A challenger in your world of prestige?" Poirot probed, watching how Finch's facade of indifference faltered momentarily. A storm of concealed emotions lay buried beneath his words, an itch to expose his truth that begged for release. As the evening crawled forward, Poirot navigated the shifting tides of betrayal. He questioned Clara, whose obsession with fame gnawed at her conscience, the doctor, who battled between his professional ambition and buried resentments, and Finch, whose wealth and status had apparently been threatened by Lady Agatha's rise. Each suspect wore the mask of innocence, yet small clues danced like dust motes in the fading light. Telltale hesitations, furtive glances, and misplaced accusations revealing far more than the words exchanged. A fractured alibi began to take shape, fragile as the candlelight flickering beneath the tempest outside. In the search for clarity, Poirot stumbled upon a puzzling red herring that almost led him astray, a seemingly innocuous goblet, formerly held by Lady Agatha, now located at a distance from her demise. A most peculiar decision for someone wishing to unwind, no? He pondered aloud. But what of the fingerprints? Could this not lead us to a place less perilous? It almost felt too convenient, and therein lay the seeds of doubt. The mishandled glass, he reasoned, spoke of a prior encounter with someone else potentially compromised. Through the muddied waters of truth and lies, Poirot's razor-sharp intellect pinpointed the tension swirling amongst the trio. Clara, her aspirations gripped by fear, battled accusations with fervent denials. Sebastian, evidently torn by conflicting loyalties, sought to protect himself above others. And Finch, whose growing envy was mismatched against the overwhelming facade of gentlemanly conduct. But the heart of betrayal lay buried within an emotional pocket, waiting, just waiting, to be unearthed. And then, like the snuffing of a candle flame, clarity emerged in the haze of revelation. In the depths of disappointments echoed through hushed confessions, Poirot locked eyes with Clara, realization washing over him like daylight, dispersing shadows. "You held the keys to Agatha's secret life," he asserted, his fingers brushing against the fragile fabric of the truth. "Your fate, entwined with hers, now unveils the discord that hid between you both, a deeply buried regret, stoked by jealousy, a fragile alibi indeed." As gas filled the space, Poirot turned towards Clarrington. "And you, my dear doctor, careful to preserve your own standing, constructed an elaborate excuse for your absence during Lady Agatha's impending demise. Yet as the horrid accusation hung thick in the air, the thunder outside erupted, drowning their thoughts, an echo of the storm's relentless pursuit. A final twist awaits," Poirot declared, his voice unwavering despite the storm's fury. "For you see, dear friends, the veil has lifted. Clara, it was you who brought Lady Agatha to her final moments, through those whispers of what was impending, a truth you feared might devastate your future." "No," Clara breathed, shattering the last gasps of calm. "I didn't mean to hurt her. I only wanted—" Poirot interrupted, his heart heavy with the knowledge of betrayal found in such fragile ties. Indeed, the price of ambition can weigh exceedingly heavy on the heart. One must recognize the shadows of their ambition, lest they consume the light. As the candlelight flickered ominously, Poirot took a moment, his voice lowering to a solemn whisper. "It is in our most desperate moments we reveal our truest selves, but alas, it is also where we lose sight of humanity." Dunraven Manor, now a canvas for the shadows of guilt, bore witness to the eternal truth. Betrayal runs deep in the darkest corners of the heart. Shall always depend upon the fragile alibis we concoct in the name of ambition. Chapter 4. Forbidden Memories. In the heart of a restless night, the wind howled an ominous tune, sweeping around Dunraven Manor like a banshee wailing within the rafters. The flicker of a single candle struggled against the darkness, casting wicked shadows upon the elegant wallpaper, a haunting replica of grim faces and lifeless eyes, forever staring into oblivion. A sudden shattering noise erupted from the parlor, sending echoes of fear reverberating through the heavy wooden halls. Poirot's dark eyes narrowed, his heart quickening as he stepped further into the web of menace entwining the manor. In the parlor, the scene unfolded like a macabre ballet. Clara Delacroix, her elegant dress now marred by the remnants of confectionery strewn across the carpet, stared in horror at the portraits adorning the walls. Her radiant emerald eyes, once filled with ambition, were now glistening with tears reflecting a maelstrom of regret. "It cannot be," she wailed, her voice a tremor upon the air. "What have I done?" It was then that Poirot noticed the shattered vase at her feet, alongside a flickering photograph bearing the name Adelaide, scrawled in elegant script. The face behind the name turned down, shrouded in mystery. Poirot stepped forward, a sense of calm enveloping him as he surveyed the unnatural tableau. "Ah, the human heart. It harbors many secrets, non?" he mused. He glanced at Sebastian. Clarrington, the doctor, who stood rigid at the threshold, his pale face illuminated by flickering candlelight. The furious storm seemed to echo the turmoil of his unreadable expression. "This does not bode well, my good doctor, does it not?" Poirot's voice was steady, tethered by the thrill of the unfolding chaos. Clarrington's fists clenched and his brows knitted tightly, revealing his inner tempest. "Don't you dare accuse me of this," he barked, his voice nearly a shriek. "I was with Lady Agatha. She was. His words faltered, riddled with contradiction, leaving a breadcrumb trail of suspicion in their wake. As Poirot turned toward the door, he caught sight of Harold Finch, who now stood motionless at the rear of the room, his brow glistening with sweat despite the biting chill that had settled into the manor. His haughty demeanor continued to crack under the pressure of scrutiny. "I warned her. I truly did," he announced, leveling his stare at Clara, who trembled. "Lady!" Agatha played with fire, and now the flames consumed her. In that moment, Poirot sensed a web and wove quietly into the strands. The disentanglement of emotions, riddled with human error, sparked a vivid tapestry of grief disassembled by jealousy, a forbidden memory threatening to unravel through fragile hearts. Days passed as Poirot delved into clues obscured by the storm of deception. He gathered the suspects in the study, illuminated only by the glowing embers from the fireplace. "Ah, Mademoiselle Clara, you shared an ambitious thread with Lady Agatha, did you not?" he inquired, his tone soft yet piercing. "It seems you were not merely her confidant, but perhaps her rival, envious of the attention she garnered. Tell me, what of your relationship with Adelaide? Was she a name meant to be whispered, forbidden by the very essence of envy?" Clara's face paled, her hands trembling as her bite of denial faltered. "Adelaide was my muse. I revered her artistry. She was my everything. But Agatha used her connection to conceal deeper crimes." "Crimes," Poirot echoed lightly, observing the quicksilver glance she cast toward the portrait in the corner, revealing shadows of a stifled past. Sebastian Clarrington shifted uncomfortably, his voice, shaky and uncertain, interrupted. "This obsession with Adelaide is—" He paused, eyeing Finch, who was growing wary. "It could have driven Agatha to desperation." Finch, with a shoulder squared in defiance, shot back. "And what of your own connections, Doctor? Rumors of your medical endeavors weave through whispers in society. How noble you appear on the surface while toiling beneath." The room tightened in palpable tension, each laden word like a knife twisted deeper into festering wounds. Poirot sensed the unraveling, an intricate chaos that danced among the trio, both raw and wickedly personal. He extracted Clara's words, chewed at the edges of truth like a relentless predator. Yet the deeper depths held a peculiar red herring, an inscribed goblet overlooked in the fleeting shadows of the parlor, adorned with a symbol once a mere reflection of fine art, now echoed betrayal. Confounding, is it not? A goblet that grants drinking pleasure, yet may have served as the instrument of a darker initiation. As Poirot probed deeper, witnesses fell silent. The truth, it seemed, lay hidden far beneath the surface, entangled with the unyielding forces of human emotion. The hollow expressions of fear morphed into masks of innocence, yet each confession ignited with uncertainty. The stage was set. The game danced upon the precipice of destruction. At long last, a chilling revelation crystallized in Poirot's mind. Guards were diminished and fractures exposed. Little by little, Clara's ambition had cast a shadow where her heart should dwell, and the tragic burden she wrought with Adelaide's presence led directly to Lady Agatha's demise. Ah, but the heart knows no bounds in the pursuit of what it yearns. He addressed them, his voice imbued with the weight of grief. The keys to Lady Agatha's tragedy exist within the door of your past, Clara. You pushed her down the pathway, perhaps even unwittingly. Clara's eyes were wide with horror, a torrent of emotions crashing against the dam of her facade. No, I merely wanted to protect my craft. I believed she would drown in the shadows of her ambitions. Finch's laughter erupted, bitter and haunting. A tragic play enacted by your own design. Clara, in your pursuit to remain unnoticed, you sealed her fate and your own. Poirot's concluding words delivered a finality ripe with meaning. The past is seldom forgotten and even more rarely forgiven. In our desire for power, we unwittingly imprison ourselves. As the candlelight flickered, casting a sepulchral glow over the anguished faces, Poirot's presence lingered in the gloom like a specter of the unspeakable. Remember, dear friends, it is in our fragile memories that darkness dwells, always waiting to be unearthed. Chapter 5. The Cryptic Letter. The sound of a single gunshot shattered the stillness of the night, echoing through the corridors of Dunraven Manor, like a primal cry for justice. Poirot, who had been pondering the swirling emotions surrounding Lady Agatha's untimely demise, was jolted upright, his keen ears straining to comprehend the chaos that followed. A shadow darted away, its silhouette swallowed by the ink-black shadows that cloaked the manor's austere charm. The candles flickered violently, as if responding to the shock, their light dancing erratically against the walls adorned with portraits that seemed to frown upon the unfolding madness. Mon ami, he mused, what treachery is afoot tonight? His eyes flitted toward the chaos, gathering clues even as the world spun around him. Surely the darkness clutched hold of many secrets, and he had yet to unearth them all. As Poirot swiftly navigated through the maze of tension, he entered the study to find Clara trembling, her once ivory complexion now a shade paler. In one hand she clutched a letter, partially stained with ink and possibly marked by the remnants of her mounting hysteria. "What has happened, Mademoiselle Clara?" Poirot inquired, his tone even but laced with urgency. "I do not know," she cried, her voice quaking with raw fear. "Sebastian, he found this." She thrust the letter into Poirot's hands. "And before I could decipher its meaning, he was gone." Sebastian Clarrington. The doctor stood before the fireplace, his broad shoulders rigid with confusion and anger. "I do not care for letters or their riddles," he spat, barely able to maintain composure. His eyes held a storm, a tumult of emotions that danced precariously near the edge of reason. "What are you suggesting, Clara?" "Ah, but the human heart," Poirot reflected silently. "It hides many things, mon ami." Sebastian had made no effort to mask his agitation, while Clara's posture mirrored a tempest of guilt. Suspicion seemed to weave its way among them, clinging to their shadows like serpents yearning to strike. "Let us read this letter together," Poirot suggested, gesturing for Clara to join him. The moment she unfolded it, the words came alive, reverberating against the walls that had grown increasingly hostile. "You have harbored secrets that even the whispers of the night dare not unveil," it began. The second line sent a shiver through Clara as she gasped. "To the one who holds the heart of Adelaide, beware. The past can twist in ways unimagined." "Adelaide," Poirot echoed, a cog turning sharply in his mind. He looked to Clara, her eyes filled with unshed tears. "What of her?" he pressed, seeking illumination in the shadows of her turmoil. "Adelaide was my sister. She disappeared under mysterious circumstances years ago, leaving me alone with the weight of her unresolved past, Clara whispered with a tremor. The sorrow enveloped her like an embrace she could not bear. But how could you possibly? Such emotions rarely lie buried without surfacing, non? Poirot prodded. His gaze flickered back to Sebastian, who appeared trapped between fear and anguish. Dr. Clarrington, you knew Adelaide as well, did you not? Your late-night encounters bear the scent of secrets? You were her confidant. Sebastian's expression turned to stone, denying the invitation. You speak of her as though she were an infatuation of the heart? I was merely her physician, trying to help. You know nothing of our bond. The tension thickened to a suffocating degree. Poirot turned slowly, weighing each piece of the evolving puzzle. A silence settled, each suspect clinging to their shrouded truths, their eyes glancing nervously at one another. It was under this weight that Finch entered, his presence unsettling as ever. Ah, Poirot, he greeted with an air of nonchalance. I must presume that the gunshot was not mere fireworks in this sinister evening? I heard it from the parlor and thought it best to investigate, although I would not wish to interrupt your delicate inquiries. He lingered, allowing his words to drip with insincerity. Indeed, Finch, we are just unraveling the threads of this night's tangled tapestry, Poirot replied, his eyes sharp upon the newcomer. And what brings you here? Merely chance? Or perhaps to ensure your own alibi remains untouched by the events that transpired outside? Finch's posture stiffened. A terrible coincidence. Clara must know of my loyalty. Loyalty is often a fickle companion when fear lurks beneath the surface, Poirot interjected, his mind racing. With each response, he felt the walls closing in, his intuition weaving a narrative, a web of connections interlaced with deceit. Days passed as Poirot meticulously unraveled the chaotic threads, examining the letter with growing apprehension while holding interrogations in the candlelit study. There was an air of animosity brewing between Clara and Sebastian, each accusing the other of harboring a darker truth. Through their shared dance of mistrust, he sensed a revelation brewing, one that sought to expose the ghosts of their past in agonizing clarity. What had begun as a simple investigation into Lady Agatha's fate had morphed into a labyrinthine holding of anguish and resentment that masked itself as friendship. Clara's eyes flicked nervously to the letter as she stared at Finch, whose smug demeanor faltered under scrutiny. You do not wish us to reveal tales of Adelaide, do you, Finch? Secrets are a currency that can be spent. Perhaps you've chosen to hoard yours. Your wild imaginings lack foundation, he sneered, yet caution flickered across his face, a crack in his well-crafted facade. It culminated on the stormy night when Poirot, having gathered each soul in the study again, laid bare the beating heart of their tangled web. Mademoiselle Clara, your jealousy swelled into a tantrum of consequence. Dr. Clarrington, your gallant deceptions cloak a more substantial intrigue, and you, Mr. Finch, have played a role as both admirer and adversary under the pretense of friendship. But alas, there lies a fiery twist to this drama, one that unveils itself with precise clarity. Clara recoiled, her face a portrait of hopelessness. What do you mean? Ah, the letter. You believed it to speak only of Adelaide, but its essence is of a partnership irrevocably altered. This bond, forged under ambition and envy, brought Lady Agatha to her final demise. Your actions invoked the past, Clara. The fears you attempted to bury resurrected with devastating force. And as for you, Doctor, he turned to confront Sebastian, the warmth of camaraderie you shared with both women was full of disbelief, yet grief crafted its icy fingers around your intentions to unveil the true nature of your bond. Caught in the swell of emotions, Clara quivered. I never meant for this. I only wanted to protect her from secrets that could destroy us both. It appears, my dear Clara, that you were the architect of your own downfall. The past is a ruthless specter, Poirot smiled faintly, overriding the humanity behind its door. Then as the storm raged outside, the layers peeled back to reveal the final twist, a final betrayal obscured in the depths of friendship. Finch, Poirot continued, Your obsession with the past and its revelations has perched you precariously on the edge. But alas, the heart can turn against itself. In more ways than you can imagine, he sneered. But I am alive to witness the consequences. The darkness must always find a vessel. Finch's fragile bravado shattered like glass, crumbling to reveal layers of resentment and desperation. Emotions erupting like overheated steam, Clara's expression morphed into dismay. You knew! You wanted us to destroy ourselves! How poetic, Poirot remarked, his expression something between sympathy and indignation. The darker threads intertwining your fates dictated this tragedy, all along. As the cacophony outside reached its zenith, Poirot turned from the seized trio, a weight in his heart that spoke volumes. Remember, dear friends, he declared, casting his words into the shadowy corners of the room. It is in the cryptic whispers of unveiled letters that we find the shadows of our ambitions, forever seeking the light. In the depth of night, Dunraven Manor bore witness to the consequences of entangled hearts, forever entwined with the secrets that had shaped them. A single candle burned low, its flickering flame a testament to the fragile persistence of truth amidst betrayal. Chapter 6. Shadows of Betrayal. A thunderous crack of lightning illuminated the windows of Dunraven Manor, casting frenzied shadows that danced like wraiths upon the walls. In that perilous moment, a muffled cough followed by a soft thud echoed through the darkened corridors, setting the heart racing. The storm outside raged with violent intensity, mirroring the inner chaos that gripped the manor's inhabitants, each shrouded in secrets and fear. Poirot stood at a vital crossroads, his instincts whispering of grave treachery lurking beneath the facade of loyalty. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he pondered silently, his mind already sifting through the turbulent emotions of the evening. As Poirot navigated the darkness of the hallway, a sense of dread mingled with the musty air. He approached the study, where an unsettling atmosphere wrapped around him like a pressed cloak. Inside, Clara, her face pale and drawn, paced anxiously, while Sebastian Clarrington seemed captivated by the crackling fireplace, his rigid form betraying a tumult of emotions. Finch, with an unsettling calmness, leaned against the wall, eyes glinting with a blend of defiance and apprehension. The bond between these three was a tapestry interwoven with betrayal, simmering with invisible threads of mistrust. "Where is Lady Agatha?" Poirot inquired, the gravity of his voice compelling attention. The question hung heavy, enveloped by the ominous shadows. "Have you seen her since the events of last evening?" Clara halted, her breath hitching, and Sebastian shifted uncomfortably, betraying the unease that boiled beneath the surface. She retired early," Clara stammered, casting furtive glances at Sebastian and Finch, whose expressions remained unreadable, like cryptic locks guarding hidden truths. "But the thud we just heard, it might have been her." Poirot, ever observant, noted the tremor in her voice and the shifty glance she exchanged with Sebastian. "Indeed, it may be prudent to investigate further," Poirot replied, a flicker of determination igniting within him. He stepped purposefully toward the door, the atmosphere thick with foreboding, and gestured for the others to follow. "Let us be certain, for danger does love to masquerade as safety." They ascended the worn staircase, the footsteps echoing against the marble like a prelude to an impending revelation. As they approached Lady Agatha's chamber, Poirot's mind worked furiously, piecing together threads of suspicion. He recalled the cryptic letter addressed to Clara, its poignant warnings lurking ever closer. Who among them held the darkest secrets? The very silence that engulfed the manor seemed to pulse with the unspoken. Brief visions of the tempest outside reflected a brewing storm within, a clash that was inevitable. As they entered the room, the foreboding aura intensified. The velvet curtains were drawn tightly, allowing only slivers of moonlight to creep through, illuminating the scene in a ghostly glow. Poirot's keen gaze swept over the lavishly furnished decor, his eyes landing on the disheveled bed. There, nestled within the silks, lay Lady Agatha, her lifeless form in eerie pallor against the extravagant backdrop. The candle sputtered on a nearby stand, sputtering as if mourning the loss of vibrancy in the room. Mon Dieu, Clara gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. What has happened? Poirot stepped forward, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what was to come. Even the body appeared to be veiled in tranquility, untouched by violence. It appears she has succumbed to a most tragic fate, he solemnly remarked, his sharp mind racing, scanning the room for anything amiss. But unaccountably, no signs of struggle are present. He observed a glimmering locket clutched tightly in Lady Agatha's hand, its latch uncharacteristically closed as though it hid remarkable secrets. Perhaps she was poisoned, Sebastian murmured, his voice steely, revealing just a hint of something darker. A spark of irritation flashed across Clara's face, her anger barely concealed beneath layers of grief. A physician's words carry weight, but are they not tinged with self-interest? Let us not succumb to reckless accusations, Poirot interjected, his elegant demeanor unruffled amidst the rising tide of mistrust. Instead, I shall delve deeper into this mystery. What we have before us poses myriad questions, each shadow returning the favor of scrutiny. As Poirot examined the locket more closely, he felt a chill crawl up his spine. Only a select few had known of the precious item's existence. Within it rested memories, both cherished and tainted. He overheard Clara whispering furiously to Sebastian, her animosities bubbling to the surface. You think I would harm her while you linger in guilt? You may very well be the reason for this. What if you are the architect of your own undoing? Sebastian retorted, his voice raw with suppressed agony. The ugliness between them painted a portrait of emotional turmoil that made Poirot's theories flourish. Each accusation revealed hidden fissures that echoed loudly in the silence, offering tantalizing hints that might lead him closer to the truth. With a steady hand, Poirot clasped the locket in his fingers, and as he pried it open, the glint of a small, aged photograph emerged. Unfolding it, the room fell quiet, caught in the palpable suspense. It was a photograph of Clara and Lady Agatha together, a moment of joy frozen in time. But upon closer inspection, another figure lurked in the background, a shadow cast in obscurity. A ghostly reflection of the past, Poirot noted. Who is this? The tension shifted, unsettling glances exchanged amongst the trio, revealing unspoken truths and concealed grievances. Clara's face contorted with a mixture of fear and indignation. That cannot be. I don't recognize him. Your reaction suggests otherwise, Poirot pressed, turning to Sebastian. And you, Doctor, what role do you play in this tangled web? Our connection was to assist Agatha, not to harm her, Sebastian replied tersely, though the strain in his voice hinted at deeper layers of entanglement. Inevitably, Poirot felt the shadows closing in, the very dissolution of trust weighing heavily upon them all. The locket served as a haunting reminder, once vibrant. Colors faded into murky shades, and love corroded by jealousy found its way to the surface. But what of Finch? He stood apart, a presence of unnerving calm. You possess an interest in the affairs of these women as well, do you not? Poirot challenged, the weight of his words not lost on the others. Why should I care? Finch sneered, feigning nonchalance. This brooding house of misfortune holds no allure for me. Yet the words dripped with deceit. Poirot's mind spun like the storm swirling. Outside, surely this man, once an admirer, now revealed a chilling aversion, a serpent hiding amid the lilies. And that locket could very well be the key to unearthing the mastermind behind this dark tragedy. In a final act of revelations, Poirot meticulously pieced together the fragments of their lives, deftly constructing a tapestry of betrayal. The heart may hold many secrets, yet it also demands its own reckoning, he declared, layering his words with the weight of inevitability. The photograph is but a glimpse, one that ultimately exposes the artist behind the chaos. Finally, the unyielding storm faded to soft rains outside, a poignant backdrop for the unraveling truths about to surface. Each of you has harbored resentments, refusing to share the burdens you carry, Poirot continued, watching the faces of Clara, Sebastian, and Finch twist with suppressed fury. In the end, it is the personal shadows that spur others to unleash horror. Finch's demeanor hardened, the mask of indifference slipping. You cannot pin this all to me. Yet every play must have its tragedy, Poirot concluded, drawing the threads of their lives taut around him. And the architect of this chaos remains unseen until now. For in this sinister realm, shadows harbored the most devastating betrayal, one that would bind them all forevermore. Poirot regarded the three, a blend of empathy and icy resolve washing over him, the weight of knowledge aching in its finality as he prepared to lay bare the intricacies of hearts entwined in darkness. Remember, dear friends, he urged, in the shadows we seek refuge, yet they often whisper the fiercest truths. Chapter 7. The Broken Mirror. The air in Dunraven Manor was heavy with an unsettling silence, shattered only by the distant rumble of thunder that echoed like an ominous drumbeat from the sky. A flickering candle cast wavering shadows on the walls, where portraits seemed animated, their painted eyes watching with a silent intensity the drama that was about to unfold. It was a night steeped in foreboding, as though the house itself held its breath, waiting for the revelation of hidden truths demanding to be unveiled. Poirot stood before a large, ornate mirror that adorned the study, its surface marred by cracks like the fractured lives of those dwelling within the manor. As he gazed into its depths, he recalled the tragic scene of Lady Agatha's demise, a specter of sorrow haunting this hallowed space. But now something else stirred in those reflections, a sense of impending chaos, waiting just beyond the surface. Mon ami, he mused in the dim light, a mirror can both reveal and obscure, showing reflections of what one wishes to see rather than what truly lies beneath. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things. The words reverberated in his mind like the toll of a distant bell, awakening questions that had yet to be answered. With resolute determination, Poirot knew the storm raging outside mirrored the tempest brewing within the hearts of the manor's inhabitants, each a suspect ensnared in a web of intrigue. He turned to face Clara, whose vibrant spirit now appeared dulled by the weight of guilt and grief. The firelight danced across her features, casting swirling shadows as she absently toyed with the locket that had once belonged to Lady Agatha, a ghastly reminder of loss. Clara, Poirot spoke with measured calmness, your emotions are as evident as the storm raging outside. You seek answers, yet your eyes betray a turmoil of secrets. Her gaze flickered toward Sebastian, who stood nearby, arms crossed defensively, his expression unreadable, yet betraying a depth of sorrow. You cannot dismiss the connection which binds you all. Sebastian the physician stepped forward, his tone taut with tension. What do you propose, Poirot? That I harmed Lady Agatha? I was her confidant, not her killer. She confided her fears to me, of something she believed was coming for her. Yet, fear can often lead one to commit unthinkable acts, Poirot replied sharply, his gaze piercing into Sebastian as if seeking to unravel the fabric of his truth. Do you deny the poison well of resentment that lingers in the air? Finch, lurking in the shadows, finally broke his silence, his voice smooth, laced with disquiet. Mistrust flows through this place like the very rain that pounds against its walls. Each of us carries burdens too heavy for a single soul. Perhaps it is you, Poirot, who lacks the insight to see the truth that eludes us all. Ah, Finch, perceptive and yet, in your dismissal, you reveal a fragility that speaks volumes. Poirot's eyes narrowed, capturing moments of hesitation, body language that hinted at truths unspoken. Your nonchalance may yet prove your undoing. As the storm intensified, Poirot felt a shift in the atmosphere, an unsettling urgency urging him to delve deeper. A crime breeds not only despair, but an urge to conceal the truth. Let us venture aside into the depths of this despair, for I suspect Lady Agatha's death harbors more questions than answers. With his companions trailing hesitantly behind, Poirot retraced their steps, guiding them back to Lady Agatha's chamber. The air felt thick, charged with memories and regret, as though the very walls bore witness to the unspeakable tragedy that had transpired. He stepped inside, where remnants of sorrow still clung to the air, and his keen eyes swiftly took in every detail. Examine the mirror, he instructed quietly, beckoning their attentions. As the others leaned closer, Poirot spoke with a clarity that amplified the tension in the room. Even now, The cracked surface mirrors their realities, distorted reflections of who we believe them to be. He was met with uneven breath, or as faces turned to look at him, their expressions revealing moments of dawning betrayal. Tell me, what sights do we see in this broken mirror? What shadows linger? Clara's voice trembled. It's merely a reflection inherently flawed. Like us, she said. A fleeting moment of vulnerability, shielded by her grief. Sebastian countered abruptly. Mirror or not, the truth contained within is elusive. One act of betrayal begets another. His words hung heavily in the air, igniting a charged silence, as all eyes darted from one suspect to the next. Poirot closed his eyes for a brief moment, allowing the unsettling stillness of the room to seep into his consciousness. The revelation that had long eluded his grasp began to crystallize in the recesses of his mind. A dark riddle indeed, for this entire scenario spells out a dance of shadows, a poisoned chalice hidden amidst trust. Poirot's brow furrowed in deep concentration, piecing each fragment together. Yet there lies a particular thread that intrigues me, he continued, fixing his gaze upon Finch. You were once enamored by Lady Agatha, were you not? The locket bears memories shared. An obsession to the point of madness? Finch chuckled darkly, the laughter hollow. What speaks of obsession? Every heart has its desires, Poirot, and yet you have failed to address the more pressing mystery. Poirot's curiosity piqued. And what might that be? Finch stepped forward, tension palpable as he produced a letter from his breast pocket, crinkled and yellowed with age. A letter I intercepted before her demise. A warning addressed to your dear Lady Agatha, he said, revealing the paper like a magician exhibiting a trick. She must have feared something dark approaching. Clara gasped, her facade dissipating beneath the weight of fear. What treachery lurked within her letters, Finch? What was so horrid that might lead to such direct scrutiny? Perhaps the letter contained information on her past connections, one from which she could not escape. Finch replied cryptically, drawing them into a web of deeper intrigue. Poirot, his brow furrowed as he read between the lines, began to understand the convoluted relationships at play. But as the storm outside battered the manor, another epiphany crashed upon him like a wave, the answer that escaped even him. The mirror's broken surface had reflected not only the damage wrought, but the truth that lay hidden was one of betrayal deeper than he could have imagined. What if I told you Lady Agatha's demise was no accident, but a deliberate act? He stated quietly, the tension coiling around them all. Not by an external villain, but forged from within the very heart of those whom she loved. What if Clara and Sebastian conspired together? The shock rippled through the room like an electric current. They exchanged glances of disbelief, yet Poirot maintained his resoluteness. Oh yes, the love shared, turned rancid by envy, set ablaze in a moment of desperation. Like shards of a shattered glass, each is grasping at a reflection of truth, born from their own fragmented desires. In the charged silence that followed, it struck Clara. Her friendship in tatters as her heart clenched with sorrow, not solely for Agatha, but for her own crumbling world. The image of Lady Agatha immersed in placid spirits left only the ghosts of the past taunting her, haunting reminders of betrayal. Poirot lingered upon the precipice of revelation lives that could intertwine, before disentangling them altogether, musing, and thus in intimacy lay the darkest betrayals, the final blow of a partner masked as a friend. Clara's gaze bore into the mirror, now lined with sadness as tears brimmed. You cannot hold me accountable, she cried, the emotional swell engulfing her. Ah, but the broken mirror reveals more than desire. It reflects the longing for freedom tainted by guilt, Poirot uttered, each word hanging in the air like the silence after thunder. As realization dawned upon all present, the sharp tang of betrayal, fear, and buried truths heavy in their hearts, Poirot delivered his grand dismissal to a fractured congregation. Though a mirror may shatter, it cannot erase the reflection of one's soul. From the shards of this tragedy, may the truth breathe life once more. And so, as the storm quieted to gentle rains, the weight of sins unmasked settled over Dunraven Manor. a dark tapestry woven forever in the echoes of the past, bound by shadows whispering secrets of their own. Chapter 8. The Widow's Confession. The clock struck midnight, each chime reverberating through the dark, cavernous halls of Dunraven Manor like a funereal tolling. Outside, the relentless storm raged, wind howling like a banshee, while inside the air was thick with tension, a spectral reminder of the shadows that lingered in the wake of Lady Agatha's demise. Poirot stood in the flickering light of the candle chandelier, its flames casting anxious shadows upon the walls, and contemplated the somber gathering before him. The very atmosphere felt charged, as if the mansion itself awaited the revelation of secrets best left buried. "Mon ami," he murmured under his breath, his eyes sweeping over the assembled guests. "The moment has come when a confession must unleash the truths that lie heavy upon this heart." As he spoke, the tension crackled in the air. Clara, her face pale and drawn, clutched the locket against her chest, a token laden with memories that gnawed at her heart. Sebastian stood nearby, his brow furrowed in deep contemplation, while Finch, the ever-evasive shadow amongst the group, remained silent, observing with a keen gaze. "Tell me, Clara," Poirot began, turning his penetrating gaze towards the young woman. "Each flicker of your candlelight fails to hide the brooding darkness within. What haunted secret lies within the depths of your grieving heart?" His voice was smooth and unyielding, like velvet, as he leaned slightly closer, inviting her to unveil what she had thus far shielded from view. In that long silence, Clara's resolve cracked. I cannot bear the whispers of the past any longer," she stammered, her voice trembling as though the storm outside echoed her inner turmoil. "Lady Agatha's death. It haunts me. It was not only the crime of another, there was my hand in it too." Her confession shattered the oppressive silence like glass breaking, leaving gasps of shock rippling through the group. "More than the pondering of innocence and guilt," Poirot interjected, his voice deliberate. "Your admission provokes a murky depth of emotion worthy of exploration. But if we are to reveal this wretched truth, it requires the shedding of shadows by all. Each of you, including Mr. Finch and Dr. Sebastian, must stand ready to confront the skeletons of your past." Finch's eyes narrowed as he attempted to mask his anxiety with a dismissive laugh. "Oh, what nonsense, Poirot. Clara's emotions overwhelm her. She is but a widow seeking solace in shadows better left untouched." His tone dripped with condescension, but Poirot noted the clenching of his fists, a subtle crack in his composed facade. Sebastian, however, stepped forward, his expression a blend of curiosity and suspicion. "You speak of shadows, Poirot, but does one not question if this very confession is an act of self-preservation? What if the widow feigns remorse to shield herself from suspicion?" His words sent a ripple of tension through the room, with Clara shooting a hurt look in his direction. Poirot regarded them both with steely resolve, his analytical mind whirring like a well-oiled machine. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami. I sense fears intertwined with conspiracies lurking beneath every motivation." He paced slowly across the room, circling the group as if scrutinizing pieces of an intricate puzzle. "Let us explore the depths of your connections," he suggested, fixing his gaze first on Sebastian. "What burden do you carry within your soul, Doctor?" Sebastian hesitated, the storm outside momentarily quiet as if even nature held its breath. "Lady Agatha confided in me," he admitted, the words trembling on his lips. "She feared she had enemies. The night of her death she called for me, frantic and distressed." He paused, searching for the right words. "I may have been too late, or perhaps there was something I could have prevented." "Your denial masks guilt," Poirot replied, his gaze unwavering. "And what of you, Finch? You were a notable figure in Lady Agatha's life. Surely you too have something to say." Finch stiffened under Poirot's scrutiny, shifting his weight as if attempting to evade the questions burning in the air like the candle flames around them. "My attachment was purely platonic, Poirot. I served as her advisor, nothing more," he forced out, but the quivering in his voice indicated a lie entangled in truth. Poirot turned his keen attention back to Clara, studying her frozen expression where sorrow intermingled with dread. Clara, he said softly, the darkness within you draws forth much suspicion. Speak the truth of your connection with Lady Agatha. What of that ill-fated evening? I loved her, Clara's voice broke, and tears glistened in her eyes, catching the flickering candlelight. I loved her more than I could ever admit to myself. The night before she was murdered, we quarreled over Sebastian. Her addled mind formed the words with difficulty. I felt jealousy, and my rage surged. I thought she might betray me. I saw her with Sebastian when she thought no one was watching. This jealousy is but a motive, Poirot interjected. Thoughtfully, perhaps too simple for a web so tangled and knotted. He paused, considering each character closely. Fate's canvas is painted with strokes of betrayal, yet I cannot ignore the feeling that something deeper lies beneath all this. The storm cracked its thunderous applause as if underscoring the weight of the truths inching toward revelation. Poirot raised his hand, silencing the murmurs of suspicion swirling in the room. But there lies one detail overlooked. What if I told you, Clara, that Lady Agatha's demise had enforcement from a force more sinister than mere human jealousy? What if the perpetrator moved through shadows unseen, masking their motives within your trust? Suddenly, a letter slipped from the pages of Finch's pocket, fluttering to the floor mat. It bore a seal that Poirot knew all too well, one that proved to be Lady Agatha's last correspondence with a man whose name had haunted her thoughts. Mon Dieu, Poirot exclaimed, kneeling to retrieve the letter. A clandestine connection to the very heart of this tale, one that speaks of blackmail and envy, reminiscent of threats she often toyed with. Clara's eyes widened with recognition, while Sebastian turned ashen, the truth dawning upon them all. You speak of that letter, he murmured, a step backward, as though recoiling from an unmentionable truth. It was your husband who sought revenge. Did he orchestrate her death? The revelation hung thick in the air, the doom of betrayal cascading upon them like rain. A twist of fate indeed, Poirot continued, rising gracefully. The widow's confession, for indeed it speaks not just of remorse, but mirrors the very shards of love that fracture beneath betrayal. Clara's trembling voice broke the fragile stillness. Can it be? My love was rooted in madness, and I sent her to her demise. The horror of realization gripped her heart, and she sank to her knees, tears streaming stark against the darkness surrounding her. Poirot addressed them all, the precise contours of the truth now laid bare before their broken hearts. Your passions entwined with envy forged the weapon that cut Lady Agatha's life short. The tragedy stemmed from the deepest emotions, intentionally masked as simple affection, but revealed now in their truest form. As the tempest outside began its retreat, tranquility settled upon Dunraven Manor, marred only by sorrow and the unshed tears of those once steadfast. Poirot stepped back, his discerning gaze encompassing the fractured souls before him. And so, with the weight of the world upon their shoulders, he offered a final reflection, one that would linger long after. In the end, we become our choices. No shattered mirror can hide the reflection of the soul beneath. The echo of his words faded into silence, forever binding them in a tapestry of the past, now interwoven with secrets laid bare. Chapter 9. A Nocturnal Chase. The chill of the storm pressed against the thick stone walls of Dunraven Manor as the clock struck 2, its hands trembling under the force of the wind. Shadows danced in the flickering candlelight, resembling restless spirits, while a figure, a solitary silhouette, moved furtively through the corridors. A sudden commotion broke the stillness. A muffled scream echoed through the halls, swallowed whole by the dark, as though the very walls conspired to keep its secrets. Poirot stirred from his contemplation in the study, the air heavy with anticipation, his discerning mind racing. He rose swiftly, adjusting his lapels, his brows knitting together as he noted the unease that rippled through the house. The distant crack of thunder punctuated his inner resolve. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he murmured to himself, striding forward into the tempest that enveloped them. He arrived at the source of the disturbance, just in time to see Clara stumble backward, her face devoid of color. Her breath came in gasps, eyes wide with terror. "Sebastian!" she cried, pointing toward the very heart of the shadowed hall. Poirot turned to find a body sprawled upon the ground, the lifeless figure of Sebastian, the doctor, his face frozen in an expression of horror, a dark stain blooming on his shirt. Chaos erupted in the manor as the remaining guests emerged from their rooms, drawn to the scene. Finch, the ever-skeptical advisor, stood rigid, a thin veneer of confidence masking the flicker of fear in his eyes. "What is the meaning of this?" he exclaimed, voice trembling. Lady Agatha had been but a recent casualty, and now here lay Sebastian, another life extinguished amidst the shrouded backdrop of Dunraven's tragedies. It was a night steeped in death, a nocturnal chase through the labyrinth of betrayal. Poirot surveyed the surroundings with an eye honed for detail. "No mere accident, I suspect," he declared, kneeling beside the body. With meticulous care, he examined the scene, noting the position of the fallen, the way the light refracted off the crimson pool beneath him. He could hear the distant storm drumming its chaotic march outside, a fitting soundtrack to the dark crescendo that had unfolded. As whispers filled the air, the tension was palpable. Clara wrung her hands nervously, then with a trembling voice recounted the events leading to Sebastian's demise. "I heard a noise. I came to check, and I found him, lying here." Her eyes glistened with tears, but Poirot sensed an undercurrent of restraint in her expression, as if memories lay buried beneath layers of anguish and apprehension. Finch, too, was quick to assert his presence. Sebastian sought to unveil facets of Lady Agatha's death that were better left undisclosed. "Perhaps the good doctor ventured too far into matters beyond his ken," he suggested, attempting to divert suspicion toward the deceased. Poirot's brow furrowed. "A curious way to deflect, Monsieur Finch. You would have us believe your association with both Lady Agatha and the doctor is entirely innocent?" Finch's eyes narrowed, and Poirot caught the fleeting flicker of something darker within them, an instinct for self-preservation. Next to step into the spotlight was Lady Beatrice, an enigmatic character with a tangled past. She lurked in the background, her demeanor a stark contrast to the mounting chaos. "You all presume too much," she interjected coolly. "We are but instruments in this dance of fate. Surely there are secrets lurking in the shadows that none of us dare to confront." Her words dripped with an unsettling calmness, and Poirot felt that perhaps she knew more than she let on. As the investigation continued, clues began to unfurl like delicate petals, each indicative of deeper lies and hidden affiliations. Poirot's mind raced through the possibilities, his usual clarity clouded by the storm of emotions swirling around them. "There is always a thread connecting a murder to its perpetrator," he stated. "The costume of loyalty often hides within its folds the attire of treachery. Tell me, Lady Beatrice, where were you when the final blow was dealt?" Moments stretched into an eternity as she hesitated, caught between the truth and the web of deceit she had woven. "I was," she began, her voice faltering. "I was merely attempting to find clarity in the library. Lady Agatha's past troubled me, particularly as it pertained to her ties with Sebastian. A link in the chain, yet not proof of guilt," Poirot countered, eyes narrowing as he assessed her discomfort. With each suspect under Poirot's scrutiny, the darkness enveloping the manor thickened. Tensions rose and suspicions collided, yet every clue led Poirot to a different conclusion altogether. The storm outside heightened the night's ominous atmosphere, every creak of the floor and whisper of the wind a reminder of the peril they faced. "Let us not become ensnared in distractions," Poirot urged, lifting himself from his earlier position. "Who would gain from Sebastian's demise? Who among us held a knife to these delicate alliances?" There was a crackling silence as each character went pale at the insinuation. The greatest deception lay overlooked. A meticulously folded letter, a remnant of Sebastian's clandestine dealings with Lady Agatha, slipped from his pocket as Clara knelt beside him. The contents hinted at plots more sinister than the murder itself. Poirot collected the letter, his heart quickening. "A little too convenient, don't you think? Monsieur Finch, a desperate attempt to draw our focus away from the greater truce at play?" He watched the flicker of recognition pass across Clara and Finch's faces, the silent admission binding them closer. And then, with the relentless storm as both witness and accomplice, revelation struck. Monsieur Finch, your undercurrents of guilt wash over you like the rain lashes the windows. Sebastian sought to protect Clara from the shadows of a dangerous liaison, that of your own husband's wrathful pursuit. Gas filled the room as the weight of Poirot's words settled heavily over them. The final twist had unveiled itself, revealing not a mere murder, but a tempest of betrayal that had been shrouded in secrecy. Finch's carefully constructed alibi began to crumble like the houses of cards it had been built upon. His desperation was palpable, and yet he remained defiant. "Why would I want to harm Sebastian?" he retorted, shaking with a mixture of anger and fear. Yet in his eyes, Poirot discerned the truth. Betrayal was merely a mask hiding a deeper sorrow. Clara, on the brink of collapse, turned to her accomplice. "You thought protecting me would absolve our ties, but instead, you have tied me to this suffering. You no longer control the narrative." At that moment, Poirot relinquished his hold on the tension that had electrified the air. And thus, my friends, we return full circle. The night brings no solace when the sins of yesterday become tomorrow's anchors. As the storm subsided, a profound sense of silence enveloped Dunraven Manor, the echoes of their haunted past binding each character together in an unbreakable tapestry of despair. Poirot stood tall, the weight of the truth now shifting onto the shoulders of those who had played their parts. In the fragile web of our emotions, betrayal often awaits in the shadows, a dagger disguised as affection. With those words marking the end of a dark chapter, he gazed deeply into their distraught faces, leaving a lasting impression that would haunt them long after the echoes of their secrets had faded away. Chapter 10. The Web Tightens. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and despair as the flickering candles cast twisted shadows that danced upon the stone walls of Dunraven Manor. A storm had gathered outside, raging against the century-old structure, the mournful howling of the wind echoing the grief that had settled deep within. Just moments ago, Clara had recounted her tale of dread. Yet, here they stood again, drawn together not by camaraderie, but by their shared entanglement in tragedy. The clock struck midnight, each chime punctuating the silence, sending chills dancing down the spines of those gathered in the drawing room. Poirot stood amid the gathering, his fingers steepled thoughtfully beneath his chin as he surveyed the faces illuminated by the ghostly glow of candlelight. "Ah, mais non," he muttered, noting the subtle shifts in their expressions. "The human heart, it hides many things, mon ami." The recent events had ignited the passions that lay beneath their polished exteriors, revealing vulnerability and perhaps underlying guilt. Among them, each wore the mask of innocence, yet the facade was paper-thin, barely concealing the turmoil that brewed within. The first of the trio, Clara, remained visibly distressed, her delicate frame shrouded in a veil of sorrow. Once vibrant, the shadows of doubt and fear now consumed her. Driven by love, if it could be called that, she had fostered a dangerous liaison that only deepened her entanglement in the affairs that led to Lady Agatha's death. Poirot recalled her anguished plea. Did I, by my singular act, condemn her to her fate? The question hung like a funeral dirge, and yet there was more there that she did not articulate. Next was Finch, the advisor whose cynical intellect masked layers of self-preservation. He stood apart, arms crossed defiantly, maintaining a carefully constructed air of authority. There was a flicker in his gaze, a calculation that moved beyond mere self-interest. Would he beg for sympathy from the very people he would betray? Poirot discerned a reluctance within him, a sense of guilt that swirled dangerously close to the surface. "Monsieur Finch," Poirot mused aloud, his voice even yet probing, "when the night is dark and the past unopened, one often finds hints in silence more telling than words." Finch's faltering demeanor was a testament to his struggle. I am a man fighting to maintain the narrative that would save him from the sins that ensnared him. The third suspect, Lady Beatrice, lingered with an unsettling calmness. Her beauty belied the darkness of her thoughts, and her eloquence often danced on the edges of truth and deception. "We are all entangled in this web, a tragic play we each script ourselves," she seemed to suggest. But Poirot sensed that her words masked a deeper reality, one she was loath to confront. In her emerald eyes flickered a deeper intelligence, the kind that rarely saw daylight, as if she had been pulling the strings all along. As chaos reigned in the drawing room, questions began reverberating through the room. Poirot, with his characteristic composure, embarked upon a careful examination of the evidence, parts of the story that twisted and turned like the storm outside. "Madame Clara," he began, turning his keen gaze toward her, "the last time we spoke, you mentioned a disquieting correspondence you witnessed between Sebastian and Lady Agatha. Pray tell, could it have implicated him in her demise?" Clara blinked, the fear in her eyes transforming into panic as she fumbled with her words. I merely saw them talking. There was nothing sinister, I swear," she implored. But her faltering resolve stirred doubt in Poirot's chest. Finch, ever the opportunist, seized upon the distraction. "Gentlemen, we cannot ignore the obvious. Sebastian had too much interest in matters that did not concern him. He was keen to dive where he ought not, and mayhap it cost him his life." Unbeknownst to Finch, his desperate attempt to shift the suspicion bore the weight of hypocrisy, the moment hanging in the air like an unlit fuse. Yet while all eyes turned to Sebastian's negligence, Poirot remained steadfast in his analysis. "Ah, mes amis," he began, "the devil is often in the details. Each of you possesses a motive, and perhaps a veneer of victimhood is but a mask for one more sinister plot." As he continued, he carefully observed their shifting expressions. Clara's cheeks flared a deep crimson. Finch's countenance darkened, while Beatrice maintained an aloof demeanor, albeit with a slight quirk at the corner of her mouth. Was it a smile or a grimace? Over the course of the night, tidbits began to unravel. A discarded letter here, an unnoticed footprint there. Poirot's mind raced against the storm that lashed outside, the swooning winds mirroring the chaos of his thoughts. Could it be that Sebastian had uncovered something about Lady Agatha that threatened each of them? As he gathered fragments of the puzzle, scintillating glimmers of truth began to emerge, dangerously close yet persistently elusive. As their conversation spiraled deeper into unfounded suspicions, Poirot's gaze fell upon an elegantly folded slip of paper. He snatched it up, a hushed gasp escaping Clara's lips as the contents revealed themselves. Intimate notes reflecting a tempestuous link between Finch and Lady Agatha, their clandestine meetings shrouded in darkness. "A lover's quarrel leads to a deadly game," Poirot surmised. "Did you conspire with Sebastian to silence your enemies?" At that moment, the ground shifted beneath Finch, panic flickering in his eyes. Yet as Poirot prepared to corner Finch, an unsettling thought crept into his mind. What if Finch had not acted alone? "Lady Beatrice," he turned his attention, gauging her reaction sharply. "Your late-night rendezvous were more than simple. Charitable discussions with Sebastian, were they not? A tangled web you both wove, and perhaps the key to the truth lies entangled within your own conscience." The tension in the room thickened like the storm clouds outside, and Lady Beatrice's cool demeanor faltered for the barest instant, a crack in her polished facade that caught Poirot's acute attention. Then, as if scripted for the grand finale of a tragedy, the final piece dropped into place. Clara fell into an anguished silence, realization taking root in her heart. "You deceived me, did you not, Beatrice? You feigned friendship, only to betray us all." The betrayal was multifaceted, each character ensnared in a web of influence and secrets, intertwining their fates with agonizing consequences. In the end, Poirot began to impart his conclusion. Sometimes it is not a singular betrayal that paints the canvas of a crime, but the stitched interplay of many shadows. The room lay steeped in silence, hearts pounding in the void left by his words. Finally, with reverberating clarity, Poirot's gaze settled upon the competitors of his little drama. "You see, dear friends, it is not simply the act of murder that binds you to this night, but the complicity of your affection. Each of you lost within your own entanglements. Betrayal mutates, but at its core, it is a reflection of one's own soul. The storm quieted, and in that moment, the trembling candle flames flickered as if to salute the unveiling of truths too painful to endure. And so, as the clock struck 1 for the final time that night, Poirot left them amidst the shrouded shadows of their own making, the echo of his words lingering heavy as the last drops of rain fell. Chapter 11. The Final Puzzle Piece. The air was heavy with the scent of impending doom, as the once vibrant tapestry of Dunraven Manor had turned into a ghostly stage for a sinister play, illuminated only by the flickering candlelight that cast grotesque shadows against the stone walls. Outside, the storm raged, its howls echoing the turmoil brewing within. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream shattered the strained silence, reverberating down the dimly lit corridors. Moments later, the room fell quiet again, but the oppressive dread clung like a shroud, wrapping around the hearts of those present. In the heart of this darkness stood Hercule Poirot, astute and composed, yet acutely aware that once more he was locked in a deadly dance of deception and despair. With a delicate yet deliberate motion, he traced the contours of a recently scrawled letter lying between the ravaged remains of a table, each word laced with an unspoken accusation. "Ah, mais non," he whispered softly to himself, his mind racing. "The human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, and here in this letter dwells a perilous truth." The storm outside seemed to roar in agreement, casting erratic shadows that reflected the strife and secrets harbored within the manor's walls. As the assembled guests stared in shock, Poirot began to assess them, a trio tangled in each other's fates, each with a tangled past that whispered of jealousy, betrayal, and desperation. Clara, her face a mask of anguish, had besmirched her integrity in pursuit of love, yet now found herself ensnared in a tragic web of consequences too dire to comprehend. Finch, the calculating advisor, clung to his air of authority, yet his nervous fingers belied a flicker of guilt lurking beneath his crafted veneer. And Lady Beatrice, elusive and captivating, wore the guise of an untroubled specter, yet her tragic past intertwined with every shadow cast upon her. Poirot's keen eyes darted from Clara's trembling hand to Finch's furtive glances, before settling upon the elegant figure of Lady Beatrice. "My dear friends," he began, his voice cool yet cutting through the tension like a knife, "we stand upon the precipice of revelation. Within this chaos lies the final puzzle piece, waiting to unlock the dark slate of our shared histories." The room, now icy with anticipation, seemed to lean in closer, hanging on his every word. "The night Lady Agatha was killed," he continued, "the storm raged as it does tonight, yet the shadows masked more than mere weather. Clara, you spoke of witnessing an intimate exchange between Sebastian and Lady Agatha. Could it be the key to our understanding?" Clara swallowed hard, her eyes gleaming with unshed tears. "I thought nothing of it, I swear. They spoke kindly of affairs, of charity. There was nothing sinister between them." Her voice trembled, but the raw despair in her tone betrayed the fragile facade of her innocence. Finch, clearly sensing the gravity of the moment, interjected hastily, "Indeed, Poirot." Agatha was known for her charitable heart. Perhaps it was her insatiable curiosity that led to her demise. Driven to sways of emotion, she could have inadvertently raised Sebastian's ire. His desperate attempt to redirect suspicion revealed a vulnerability that only further ignited Poirot's suspicions. Every gesture, every word, unveiled the tremors of deceit beneath their surface. As the atmosphere thickened with unresolved tension, Poirot meticulously scrutinized Lady Beatrice. "Ah, but my dear Lady Beatrice," he prodded with an elegance that belied an undercurrent of confrontation. "Your rivalry with Lady Agatha ran deep, did it not, entwined as it was with matters of affection and betrayal?" Her composed facade flickered momentarily. A single, imperceptible tremor revealed her struggle. Was there jealousy festering beneath her polished veneer? Just as confusion tightened its grip, Poirot's careful observations bore fruit. A flash of movement caught his eye. Clara clutched the letter that had been the source of so much turmoil. "What is this?" he inquired, and Clara's hands shook, the paper crumbling in her grip, revealing itself to be a written confession entwined with Lad Agatha's frantic handwriting. The letter referenced an intense confrontation between Lady Agatha and Sebastian, a veiled threat that hinted at something more sinister, a manipulation that left no room for misunderstanding. As Clara began to piece together the fragmented accusations, she gasped, "Sebastian knew?" He aimed to confront Agatha about her dubious dealings, perhaps to protect us all from her machinations. A chorus of accusatory glances erupted, the atmosphere now tumultuous. Poirot remained calm, mulling over the implications this newfound evidence brought forth. "A tangled web indeed," Poirot exclaimed, stepping forward. "But wait, could it not be that these hints led us far astray?" His voice resonated, creeping through hidden corners of doubt. How easily suspicion could muddle the mind, leading one towards misplaced judgments. As he contemplated, the storm outside crescendoed, whipping the manor into a frenzied tumult, as if the forces of nature themselves sought to conceal the truth. Suddenly, a declaration broke through the other. Voices, a slanderous insinuation from an unexpected source. Lady Beatrice, her voice icy, delivered a cutting revelation. "You all presume innocence, yet can any of you grasp the type of depravity I have endured? You would know nothing of manipulation until you've tasted its bitterness." Poirot's mind whirled at her words. There remained a hidden depth to her connection with both Sebastian and Lady Agatha, forged in a crucible of tragedy. The pivotal moments of the night unfurled like the pages of a winding tale. Lady Beatrice had loved Sebastian, perhaps critically unrequited, while Agatha had resided in possession of a secret so immense it birthed resentment in their circles. As names and intentions spiraled into a blurred haze, Poirot gathered the threads, focusing on the mounting evidence that told the story of betrayed loyalties. Then, as the thunder rumbled like the final act of a tragedy, Poirot uttered the claim that would shake the very foundations of their narrative. "You see, dear friends, it is not merely the act of murder that binds you tonight, but the tangled interplay of jealousy and conspiracy. The heart is a tool often wielded against the very soul that forged those emotions." As wisdom dawned upon them, Clara collapsed in anguish, realization dawning upon her as the storm raged on outside, a reflection of their own inner turmoils. And then, at the climax, the storm ceased its howling, the candlelight flickered in a moment of eerie calm, and Poirot posed a final question that pierced the silence. Would the fall of one truly vindicate all, or instead, deepen the wounds we share? The echoes of his words settled heavily upon them, leaving their hearts burdened with the weight of their transgressions. As he surveyed the confessional glances exchanged amongst them, the final puzzle piece slipped into view. A reflection of betrayal, not just of the body, but of the heart and spirit intertwined in this dark tale. Dunraven Manor and its secrets, he fathomed, thrummed with a legacy carved deep in echoes of retribution. And as Poirot turned to leave, the darkness held on to him, the haunting finality of a night woven deep in despair, parting with his lingering words. A reminder that the greatest betrayals often hide in plain sight. Chapter 12. The Silent Cry Revealed. The storm outside howled with a ferocity that seemed to rattle the very stones of Dunraven Manor. Rain lashed against the old windows, creating a rhythm of chaos that mimicked the turmoil raging within. As the lightning illuminated the room for brief moments, shadows danced across the walls, showcasing a silent drama of fear and uncertainty amongst those gathered. It was on this tempestuous night that a scream echoed, an agonizing cry that pierced the air and sent shivers down the spines of everyone present. In the center of the dimly lit parlor, Hercule Poirot stood poised, his sharp mind whirring a mile a minute as he took in the horror surrounding him. Clara, tears streaming down her pale cheeks, trembled in shock, her gaze locked on the crumpled figure in the corner. Lady Beatrice's expression was a paradox of concern and suppressed dread, while Finch, with his pallid face, seemed to be grappling with an internal tempest of his own. "Ah, mais non," Poirot murmured to himself. "It appears the night has not finished revealing its secrets." The manner in which the trio tensed under his scrutiny hinted at deeper betrayals yet to unfurl. The scene had descended into chaos when they stumbled upon Lady Agatha's lifeless body, cruelly slumped against the remnants of a shattered vase, the elegant decor of the room marred by the violence of her end. In her hand lay a torn letter, ink smudged, as if she had fought to clutch it in the final moments. This damning evidence, barely discernible in the flickering candlelight, seemed to speak of desperation and fear, a silent cry revealing a greater mystery veiled beneath the chaos. Poirot felt the weight of the tragedy settle upon him, igniting an insatiable curiosity to unearth the shadows in this tangled web of loyalties. With methodical grace, Poirot turned his focus to each suspect, studying their faces with the keenest of attention. Clara, who had just come from a tormented embrace of love, was hiding her guilt behind a facade of pure shock. Her history of infatuation with Sebastian now cast a damning light upon her motives, especially given her jealousy towards Lady Agatha. "Clara," Poirot began, his voice even yet probing, "was there not a connection shared between you and Lady Agatha over matters of affection?" The tremor in Clara's voice as she whispered her denial did little to assuage Poirot's suspicions. "No, I adored her. Truly, I swear it. I never wished her harm." Yet the remnants of doubt clung to her words like shadows lurking just beyond the candle's flicker. Finch, whose demeanor perennially exuded calm authority, now appeared agitated, slicking his hair back, repeatedly and avoiding Poirot's piercing gaze. Agatha was formidable. Wielding her influence like a passed sword, she would have exposed flaws in the very foundation of our affairs. She could have ruined us all. His anxious exclamations hinted at a deeper vendetta, one formed in whispered conversations over shady dealings and long-lost friendships. Poirot noted the hesitation in Finch's tone, a slight fissure in an otherwise polished persona. Then there was Lady Beatrice, the serene beauty whose tragic elegance belied a maelstrom of emotions hidden from the world. In her eyes, Poirot observed a flicker of something unnameable, a wrestling between sorrow and rage that hinted at lifelong entanglements. "Ah, Lady Beatrice," Poirot addressed her softly, "your history with Lady Agatha speaks of deep-seated rivalries, does it not? Perhaps jealousy-fueled emotions beyond your control?" Her lips tightened, body stiffening, as if confronting an inner tempest. "You know nothing of what I endured," she snapped, the fragile threads of her poise revealing an undercurrent of heartbreak. "You speak of jealousy, yet do you grasp the sacrifices one makes for love? To witness another basking in the affections of that which one cherishes." Her voice wavered, revealing the rawness of her turbulence. As Poirot began weaving through their fears and lies, the letter clutched tightly in Agatha's hand, the contents of which remained unwritten, yet palpable. A sudden gust of wind rattled, the windows plunging the room into momentary darkness. The unexpected chill propelled memories of old grievances to the forefront, and Poirot seized the moment to unravel the threads persistently binding these personalities in a dance of deception and despair. In the ensuing tense silence, Poirot made his decisive move. "You see, my dear friends, it is not only the dilapidated facade of love that leads to murder. It is the silence which often obscures the cries for help." His words resonated within the assembled group, igniting sparks of realization as they began to comprehend the implications of their shared pasts and intertwined fates. As he meticulously examined the fateful letter once more, something struck him. The ink appeared fresh, not weathered by the passing hours. "My instincts, they guide me with clarity," Poirot stated, lifting his gaze briefly to meet Lady Beatrice's conflicted expression. "It was you, was it not? You recorded Lady Agatha's threats against you here, but rather than merely cautioning Sebastian about her designs, you composed it as though it were the confessions of a lover in distress. The true weight behind your intentions is a hidden terror of consequences unresolved." Clara gasped, her hand clutching her throat as realization dawned. "You didn't kill her in rage. You sought to prevent exposure." Her voice quivered, unraveling the inner mystery as each participant turned on her, accusing glances boiling like water before a storm. And yet, Poirot mused, what if there's more than this tempestuous taint upon you, Lady Beatrice? Your lamentations conceal another truth, that the heart pulls at the strings of actions unmediated by rational thought. Suddenly, a clash of thunder punctuated the air, a swirling barrage of emotion exploding as the final piece clicked into place. Ah, but the betrayal does not lie merely within acts, but the hidden shadows of character intertwined amongst us. Poirot stepped back, reflecting upon their tangled histories, movements revealing secrets entangled by love and guilt. In a final, breathtaking moment, the story came to a crescendo. It was Finch, was it not? Concealing his own affairs while distracting us with accusations aimed at Lady Beatrice? You were desperate to protect your own reputation, fearing that her whispers could unravel the intricate tapestry of deceit woven with Lady Agatha. Wounded silence enveloped the room as Finch looked caught between defiance and terror, while Lady Beatrice's facade cracked beneath the weight of previously hidden truths. The storm abated outside as if nature too acknowledged the gravity of the moment. Poirot turned toward the three assembled figures. You see, dear friends, even in our most coveted silence, a silent cry for redemption lingers, echoing through the corridors of human despair. In the final strokes, each of you has become not only a puppet of fate, but an architect of your own tragedies, a legacy of shadowed love and unspeakable betrayal entwined in the very fabric of Dunraven Manor. As Poirot withdrew, the aftermath of the storm flickered like candlelight in their hearts. The final realization that their greatest fears often resided in silence.